It was like something snapped inside, and that red surge came back, and I thought, okay, you will die. Hi, friends! Welcome back to another episode of Verona Investigates. My name is Verona, and I'm here today to tell you a story. Remember, I upload once a week, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Elizabeth Wettlaufer. So let's get into it. In 2016, Canadians were horrified to learn that an Ontario nurse, Elizabeth Wettlaufer, had confessed to killing 8 long-term care residents. Although serial murders committed by healthcare professionals are rare, it is more common than most of us want to imagine. There are lessons to be learned from the Wettlaufer inquiry and from other health serial murderers. It is estimated in the US that on average 35 Americans are killed by HCSM per year. So HCSM is healthcare serial murderer. The true numbers are likely higher given that these crimes are often missed for years, and most convicted of HCSM are charged with fewer murders than they actually admit to. Nurses are the professionals who are most charged with murder, accounting for 86% of criminal proceedings. Overall, 12% of these are charged with HCSM, are physicians. Hospitals are the most common location for HCSM, about 70%, but between 2009 and 2015, the estimated percentage of murders occurring in LTC, so that's long-term care, rose from 20% to 32%, which might reflect the increasing fatality and vulnerability of LTC residents. Surprisingly, attacks do happen in outpatient settings. For example, a German nurse was convicted of killing 85 patients. He criticized boredom and excitement of resurrection as a driving force for his murders. A prime example is the chilling case of Harold Shipman, a trusted family physician in England who turned out to be one of history's deadliest serial killers, claiming the lives of an estimated 250 patients over 27 years. Early in his career, Harold faced charges for forging medicine. Let's try this again. Harold faced charges for forging medicine prescriptions, a troubling sign of what yet to come. His signature method involved administering a lethal dose of opiates during house calls, then covering his tracks by completing death certificates and altering the medical records. While most of his victims were elderly, his youngest was 41. Although financial gain wasn't a frequent motive, Harold did forge a will of an elderly patient to benefit himself. Alarm bells rang at a local funeral home where staff noticed an unusually high number of deaths among Harold's patients, particularly elderly women, and spotted irregularities in the cremation paperwork. Despite these warnings, an early investigation was dismissed after medical reviewer found it impossible to believe that a physician could commit such heinous crimes. Ultimately, 3 separate inquiries exposed Harold's methods and led to critical reforms to prevent similar abuse in the healthcare system. The dark legacy of Harold Shipman and the systemic failures that allows his crimes to go undetected for so long isn't unusual in these cases. Born Elizabeth Tracy May Parker on June 10th, 1967, to parents Doug and Hazel Parker. She and her brother were raised in Woodstock, Ontario. Elizabeth was known as Beth Parker while attending Huron public secondary school in the mid 1980s, where she practiced in band and choir. In her high school yearbook, Elizabeth said she hoped to study drama in university. She earned a bachelor degree in religious education from London Baptist College, since renamed Heritage Baptist College. Elizabeth later studied nursing for 3 years at Conestoga College in Kitchener, Ontario, and became a registered nurse in 1995. And a year later, into her nursing career, she was caught stealing opioids from a nursing home where she worked at the time. After which time she was later allowed to return to work with letters supporting her recovery. In October of 1997, she married a man named Daniel Wettlaufer, a long-haul trucker she met at church. The pair lived together in Woodstock. They did not have any children. The couple separated in January of 2007 and formally divorced in the year 2008. Elizabeth would later say the end of her marriage caused her stress and anger and also played a large role in her decision to start taking lives. She was very frustrated with dealing with dementia patients who were difficult to control, physically abusive, and often dependent. After her divorce, Elizabeth entered several same sex relationships. She later told neighbors that she had found God and was no longer interested in women, according to the media reports after her arrest. I found God. Elizabeth was also Uh, Elizabeth was also at the time addicted to alcohol and opiates when she and went to rehab twice. The staff at the Center of Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, in Toronto diagnosed her with major depressive disorder, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial adult behavior. Fun side note. CAMH stands for Center of Addiction and Mental Health, which is one of the leading mental health and addiction research and treatments facilities in Canada, based in Toronto, Ontario. The key functions of CAMH are treatment and care, which provides specialized service for individuals facing mental health and addiction challenges. Two is research. They conduct groundbreaking research to better understand mental illness and develop effective treatments. Three is education and advocacy. They offer educational programs and research to raise awareness and reduce the stigma surrounding mental health. Four is policy influence. They work on shaping policies to improve mental health care system and accessibility. CAMH is internationally recognized for its interactive work in psychiatry, neuroscience, and mental health advocacy. Ooh, I did not struggle with psychiatry today, but I feel it on the tip of my tongue. Elizabeth confessed to stealing medications from a safe used to store drugs belonging to dead patients. But she said at the time when she committed the murders, she was sober. Though intoxication is not a defense to criminal charges in Canadian law, it can be a factor in determining if a murder was planned or deliberate. In her case, a claim of intoxication may have resulted in a conviction of a lower grade of murder. Her crimes were committed by using insulin, a diabetic medication that lowers blood sugar. It can cause a coma or death when too much is administered. Insulin overdoses are also difficult to detect, so the victims' families originally believed that their loved one died of natural causes. In the 2.5 hour videotape confession with police, she said she felt a red surge before killing and described a laughing feeling once the murders were completed. She also said she believed God was telling her to kill. Who also believed that? The first one that comes to my mind is Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, when he believed that God was speaking to him. Was it through the dog? I think so. He's still in prison, right? Let me know in the comments. And any other serial killer or murderer that comes to your mind when you think about them saying, God told me to kill. In one case, she believed her victim was no longer enjoying life. In addition to the 8 murder charges, she also used insulin injections to commit 4 attempted murders and 2 aggravated assaults against patients in her care. Between June 25th and December 31st of 2007, Elizabeth injected 2 sisters, Claudina Ardrino and Albina Demetrius, with insulin. The 2 Crescent Care residents were her first victims. The doses were not fatal, and police did not attribute either of their eventual deaths to Elizabeth. Adriano died in 2008, and Demetrius died in 2010. In January 2017, police charged her with 2 counts of aggravated assault for these injections. Elizabeth committed her first murder on August 11, 2007 at Crescent Care when she gave 84-year-old James Silcock enough insulin to kill him. From December 2007 to March 2014, she would go on to kill residents Maurice Garant, 84, Gladys Millard, 87, Helen Matthews, 95, Mary Zerwinski, 96, Helen Young, 90, and Maureen Pickering, 79. Days after she murdered Pickering, she was fired from Crescent Care for making a series of medical errors, including giving insulin to one patient that was prescribed for another. She had been suspended by Crescent Care several times before she was eventually fired. After Crescent Care, Elizabeth moved between several facilities until she left nursing in 2016. I don't understand how one can still get a nursing job, and I'm sure they were in other long-term care facilities after you were fired from one. And she was suspended several times, and she deliberately mixed up medication. This woman truly did think she was the angel of death. So already, I don't know if you guys are having the same vibes I am. There is some failures within our healthcare system, especially when it comes to looking after our elderly loved ones. But we're not going to dive too much into that, but it does come back to play later in this podcast, so got to keep listening. Her final victim was 75-year-old Arpad Horvath, whom she killed in August 2014. Arpad was a married father of 2 living at the Meadow Park facility in London, Ontario. Elizabeth would go on and confess her crimes to several people before they came to light in 2016. Among those she told were a former boyfriend, a student nurse working at Crescent Care, a pastor and his wife, a lawyer, and an ex-girlfriend, all of whom did not report her to the police. Some told her they would do so. Some told her they would do so if they found out she killed again, while others dismissed her claims entirely. In the end, the investigation into her crimes was sparked by yet another confession from the serial killer herself. So that's a little interesting. It doesn't really say who said that, oh, if you kill again, we're going to tell on you. Really? Really? Those people are idiots. The other ones who kept quiet, you're just as guilty. But Elizabeth seemed to, I don't know much about her personality, it doesn't really say, but she could have been a pathological liar, or she, you know, I don't know, but the words are not coming to me. Over exaggerated. There we go. But she could have over exaggerated a little bit. So maybe people are like, oh, Elizabeth. She also did have a drug and alcohol problem, so that could have played into it too. Why nobody initially originally believed her. Maybe she was drunk at the time, maybe she was under the influence of drugs. So they're like, oh, this is just ramble talkings of a woman who's had a little too much this evening. But I do find it interesting that her confession is what ultimately did get her caught. I feel like if she didn't confess, she would have just gotten away with the 8 murders. On September 16, 2016, she checked herself into rehab at CAMH. 2 weeks after, one of her employers registered her to administrate insulin to children with diabetes at a school in Ingersoll. She would later say that she feared she wouldn't be able to resist hurting them, so she quit the job. You know what? And kudos to her. Elizabeth might be a terrible person with some severely mental health issues, but at least she checked herself into a rehab facility and did not kill her murderous spree on innocent children. But she's still a bad person. Soon after she was admitted to CAMH, she started confessing to staff, who first informed Toronto police and the College of Nurses of Ontario. Toronto police first interviewed her on September 29th, 2016. The next day, she resigned her nursing status with the College of Nurses. Elizabeth was arrested on October 24th, 2016, at the age of 49. The public was shocked and horrified by the killings after Woodstock police released details the next day. On June 1st, 2017, Elizabeth would plead guilty to all 14 charges against her. Because of her guilty plea, there was no trial. The court held a sentencing hearing on June 26, 2017, giving victims and their loved ones the chance to read their impact statements out loud in court. Most described grief, depression, and guilt. Elizabeth would apologize in court that day, flatly telling those assembled in court that she was truly sorry. Justice Bruce Brown Thomas, Justice Bruce Thomas, I don't know where I got Bruce Brown from, sentenced her to life in prison. Her sentences were to be served concurrently, meaning that there was no chance of parole for 25 years. Good old Canada with its no parole for the possibility of 25 years kind of contradicts concurrently, but whatever. What do I know? I don't work in the legal field. Thomas could have sentenced her to 8 consecutive terms totaling 200 years, but the justice said he recognized that the public would likely never have known about her crimes if she did not confess. Some leniency there. I see what he's saying. Elizabeth herself remained expressionless throughout the sentencing. She was imprisoned in Vernon Center for Women in Milton, Ontario. Vanier? I don't think I said that right. That's cool. We're going to move past it. Though she will be eligible for parole in 2041, Thomas noted in his judgment that she isn't likely to get it. I highly doubt she'll get it in 2041. I'm not even, that's over 20 years away, just under, but I doubt it. And also, she'll be like, what, like in her 70s? Close to 80? The Wettlaufer case significantly damaged public trust in Ontario's long-term care system. Advocacy groups called for inquiries from the provincial government and the College of Nurses before the court case ended. And in July of 2017, the college held a disciplinary hearing for Elizabeth, who had already given up her nursing status. They permanently revoked her registration, barring her from nursing in Ontario. I don't really see the point of that hearing. I feel like that was just a waste of time because she had already given up, but maybe it's all legalities The hearing also revealed past restrictions on her nursing activities due to intoxication on the job, dating all the way back to the 1990s, raising questions about the college's regulatory effectiveness. So, wow. Because remember, guys, she stole pills a year and a half almost, or a year almost into her being a nurse back in 1990s. I was 95, I believe. Well, it would have been in 96, so she got her nursing degree and license in 95. Elizabeth was fired by Crescent Care in 2014 after making medication errors and had already killed 7 patients by then. Crescent Care later disputed claims that it had reported no concerns about her. Following the sentencing, the Ontario government ignited an inquiry into the long-term care system. The investigation ran from August 2017 to July 2019, resulting in a report with 91 recommendations for better oversight, funding, and staffing in long-term care facilities. Poor hiring and firing practices in long-term care facilities were highlighted. The ONA, Ontario Nursing Association, was criticized for their role in shielding Elizabeth and ensuring that future employees were not aware of her disciplinary actions. The ONA was, however, acting under legislation that mandated this approach. Several American states have reenacted legislation in response to HCSM cases to ensure organizations cannot block access to records resulting to previous incidents or disciplinary actions. As well, the explanation of the coroner cases in Ontario was changed in 2013, which has resulted in fewer investigation and autopsies, especially in long-term care homes. So that's interesting. The Americans changed their laws, but Canada hasn't. Oh, wait, we did, where we make it okay for them, a little bit easier for them to kill elderly people and look the other way because of the laws that changed in Ontario. Don't want to get old in Ontario. Let me know if you think Canada should have stricter laws, and they should change it sort of the way that our friends down south, well, just under us, that like meth lab that is America, that are doing way better than us right now. If we should change our laws too, where these records of nurses who have behavioral issues and disciplinary measures, that they don't block access, so that way other employers know about it and their coworkers know about it. Let me know your thoughts. The Office of Chief Coroner for Ontario came under security at the inquiry, as several of the murders had been coroner cases that were not investigated. Victims' families filed lawsuits against Elizabeth Wettlaufer and the nursing homes involved, and the Ontario Nursing Association was also mentioned in one case. Crescent Care's Woodstock facility was ordered to stop admitting new patients in January 2017 due to serious issues, while its Fergus location faced similar restrictions from October 2017 to February 2019. Both facilities are back up and running, and they are administrating new patients. Although HCSM is very rare, Elizabeth Wettlaufer showed us it happens in Canada, and we need to be aware and play a role in prevention and early identification. And that, my wonderful friends, is the story of Elizabeth Wettlaufer. If you enjoyed today's episode of Verona Investigates, don't forget to like, follow, and rate this podcast wherever you listen. Find us on the socials for updates, episode content, and share your thoughts and theories. Your support means the world, and it keeps the investigation going. Thank you for listening, and as always, stay curious. Bye.